movie notes on Radium Girls, 2018 film, 5 November 2024 viewing. I am Tanis Coralee Leonhardi, she, her, hers of Seattle, and these are my movie notes for my Tuesday, 5 November 2024 viewing of the 2018 film Radium Girls, which is a biographical film about unintended consequences for two sisters and their co-workers from using the chemical element radium in decorating timepieces for a company in the United States of America. And so essentially there's back in the late 1800s and early 1900s, there was a bunch of scientific breakthroughs, including the discovery of different chemical elements, and radium was one of those. And so, like, there were all these discoveries, and then, like, you know, it's like pushed into industry, pushed into, let's get it into society, let's look at that as fast as possible. And of course, things go wrong. And of course, because, you know, it's always a breakthrough, now apply it as fast as possible without thinking it through. But of course we thought it through. And then, oh, by the way, it turns out it's radioactive. So you're losing teeth and your skin is changing color and teeth are decaying because of the radioactivity. Right. And so it's just the reality of scientific breakthroughs. Some have a little bit more potent of unintended consequences to human anatomy and well-being, and so this kind of goes through that. And I think there's some chemical elements and materials are toxic at touch level, while some are at ingestion level, and this is one where they dip brushes in radium, and they lick the brush, and then they decorate timepieces. And so it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, this was back in the 1920s, so business practices were a little bit different back then. I would like, so, but then it follows the story of two sisters and their co-workers as they, because it was a scientific breakthrough discovery of this material or element in the first place, and there's also the corresponding, well, there's symptoms here, but we don't quite know what it is, right? And we have one or two other accounts, or we have a few accounts over here, but that doesn't mean we can give you an answer of what it is, right? So that corresponding, like, yeah, so sometimes the thing is the breakthrough, but sometimes the unintended consequences are also breakthroughs themselves, right? So this one does a good job of covering that dynamic of, like, yes, and sometimes they really don't know what it is. Okay, and so the business people might go, we're going to say it's something, right, even if it's not, because we can provide some answer, even if it's wrong, right? So it captures that dynamic of science bit. And so I was thinking through it, I was watching it, and I was like, this is a great movie to watch, and thinking about, like, if I were return to research / work in academia / science, was there something I did in the past that I did right in terms of addressing potential unintended consequences? So, like, if somebody's doing research in physics, or chemistry, and then the unintended consequences are physiological, is there a way that they would have even known, right, those unintended consequences were happening, right? It's a different realm of research. And so I was thinking about it, and I came up with, like, kind of two things that I have done each, but I, like, also was like, okay, how would I extend that to the future? All right. So movies like this remind me of the importance of diversification in science, so that can be people and topically. So not only attending technical conferences, but events such as diversity summits as well. So I did this in July 2018, and the emphasis there is on diverse people, because diverse people, right, if one is working with radium and it affects a certain group of people, right, and only a certain group of people, like industrial employees, and most conferences are like that, or in the network are academia, right, then it's worth going to. Like, I went to a diversity somewhere, and there was academia, national laboratory workers, and industry, right? So if I'm not normally interacting with industry, but the problem is in industry, then I need that diversity summit, right? So I did this in July 2018, and so just thinking about that, to, or like if a certain group of people, like, yeah, or we'll just say like, or some sort of diversity, right? Group gets affected, or there's a community that, a research group in Kenya, right, that they're like, we have this thing that's here, and I'm like, can you describe that? And you're like, oh, you know, like, and I go, yeah, that kind of thing, right? It's like trying to see if there's something, right? Figure out if, or you pick up on if there's something unintended that's perhaps not so good that could be addressed. Right? So there's one. The other one, also attend conferences for topically adjacent areas. So I did this in March 2018 to stay aware of potential danger areas and learn/get refreshed on the basics of how communication works in the discipline if there is a development. So, like I was working on a material, a naturally occurring earth material, and I learned at the conference it's being extended for shielding use in nuclear reactors. And I'm like, well, that's in a development now, isn't it? Do I want to continue doing this research I'm doing in graduate school when the material is being used in the nuclear industry? Maybe I should switch advisors. Right, and I ended up switching advisors. So that's a success story. It was right. So I was in a Department of Earth and Planetary Science, but the conference I went to was for Minerals, Metals, and Materials. There's the Minerals, Metals, and Materials Society, and I was like, I'm happy I went. And there's, yeah, so there's that. I also went to a high energy density laboratory in astrophysics. And so that's more like narrowed in, but that, who knows, that kind of thing, right? So there's the like broad community and then the narrow community, which might be directly or topically adjacent. So adjacent meaning like next to. So it might not be directly what I'm doing, but I'm like, but it's adjacent, and yes, that adjacent thing actually really does matter, right? And then I was like, okay, from what I've talked about on this channel, is there something? Was it the Rutherford Prize, the one where the topic area is light for the awarding of the prize? So there's some prizes that are like open to all science or open to all of a sub-discipline of science or like a type of science, right? And so it's like, what's different about that is it's like a research area. And I'm like, so if I'm doing something, I'm like, light might matter in this. Then maybe, you know, like if I can and it's not out of my way, like maybe make a point of like, while working on the project, attend a conference on light, like just once to know how it works and like get like a little bit of like, is there anything really out of the blue? I'm like, oh, look at that. That might be relevant. And that's okay. Let's think about that. All right. Even if it's just like, okay, I still can proceed, but I made a mental note, write it down somewhere of, I don't know at this point in time, but it did capture my attention. Okay. So those are my notes. And then my Tuesday 5, November 2024 Election Day highlight. This one is very relevant. So a discoverer of radium, Marie Curie, she was a white woman of Poland and later France, is the only woman to have won a Nobel Prize in physics without having the right to vote, meaning only white woman has had no voice and still risen, which is a very interesting combination. So it's like, okay, so then if I do that, so like if that were to happen, if my right to vote were to be taken away, and I won, let's say, a Nobel Prize in physics, so then and things are like static relatively. So then if I do that, then Duwamish and Lakota, Native American women have risen as well. I mean, I was like, yeah, sometimes things are so far behind that it's like a true testament to the quality of white woman is only woman, only person, technically, because even men didn't do that. They had the right to vote. So it's kind of an interesting one. Right, and that's the lady who discovered this stuff. And like, a tough material with very strong materials, reflective of a very strong woman. She won Nobel Prizes in 2 disciplines, physics and chemistry. I think it was 1/2 in physics and 1 out of 100% in chemistry. High quality lady. So there we go. This is my movie notes on Radium Girls. So this is part of her legacy. Whereas mine might be like nuclear weaponry. Which one's worse? Probably mine. She's like, no, mine. You know, she's fighting from the grave. You don't get to take the toxicity from me, Tanis. Fine, Miss Curie, Marie Curie. There we go. There we go. Movie notes on Radium Girls 2018, 5 November 2024 viewing. Yeah, mad scientists. What?